Hey everybody, welcome back to WineupTV. What a treat today. We have Anders Bergström here from the iconic family Bergström wines. And we come back, we're going to taste two of his wines and we're going to have a series of others to follow. See you in a second. Anders,
how you doing,
dude? Thank you for coming by. You know, I look back at your family. I have a little personal relationship, kind of, with the family. I went to high school with your sister Kendall.
Okay.
Knew Eric very well. And when you look at your family, your dad, it's just a sweet guy.
He is.
You know, he's not my dad, so yeah. I could tell him. I could say he's a sweet guy. I didn't have to grow up with him, but. Yeah. Every time I've seen him up at the winery, he's just so passionate, and he's so thankful that people come up, and he's so humbled by that. And your dad, is he an OBGYN by trade?
He was OBGYN. He stopped doing obstetrics in, I believe, the early 80s, and then was GYN until his retirement. And it took us a lot to get him to retire. I think he had 3 or 4 different attempts at retirement.
There we go.
Like a surgeon would be.
and owning a winery is never retirement.
No, yeah,
he'll do this till he dies now. Yeah. But you know, you look at your family. So Josh, who's a great guy, very talented winemaker. Eric, who I know very well, great, very fair judge, as judges go here in the Portland area. Your sister Kendall, who I went to high school with, who's very successful in real estate. Yeah. Married a great guy, Lance Delancelotti. Just a great guy as well. And then you, who worked at Provista for years and then kind of stumbled back upon the family.
Yeah. I started with the winery back in the early days, back in 98, 99, when we planted Bergström Estate Vineyard. Josh was in Burgundy, came back, and he was working for Eric Homaker at the time, and we did the 99 vintage at Lemelson, where he was nice enough to give us a small spot to be able to.
Eric's a great guy as well.
Yeah. It was 4 barrels of wine. That was the 99 vintage.
I just love how these people start out 4 barrels back in the day.
4 barrels, yeah. It was. It took a while to come around, but that was the first vintage, and we also. So I worked through 2000 vintage, which we did out at Firesteed, out on a crush pad that was freezing cold. And that was a real learning curve for me. We didn't really have the facilities. We had fermenting bins that were plastic, but we didn't have any way to warm or cool the wine. We didn't have any heating jackets, so we got housing insulation and wrapped the bins with that. And that was
pretty technical stuff back in the day.
It really was. I think that the winemaker from Firesteed occasionally would look out and see what we were doing and just shake his head.
Kind of chuckle a little bit.
Yeah, it was pink froth everywhere. So, but it was we had a little basket press and that's all we had. But so I worked out through then, and then at that point, my wife and I lived in Portland, so it was quite a commute, and I was out there more than I was at home. So
it is a drive.
Yeah, it's a drive. It started becoming more driving than living at home. So I stayed in Portland and worked for Provista for about 12 years, but just came back to.
Good for you, man. Yeah. It's exciting to see a family member come back to the family business and to really, really shine. And it's easy to shine when you're selling such an iconic label and such well-structured wines. So your brother, Josh, and I remember you guys did a Riesling, and they don't make Riesling anymore, which is pissing off some people. But Josh is pretty true to his word, you know. I mean, his wife is from Burgundy.
Yes.
And, you know, where they grow over there, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And this is what you guys do. And he's very passionate about both those grapes. And I think he's really getting better and better and better every vintage. He's learning from the vintage before, or the more difficult vintages like the 7 and the 11.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember going to the winery a couple of years ago. He just got done fermenting the 12s, and they were just in barrel, and he said, Wayne, he goes, check this out. And he got his wine thief, and he put a little bit of wine in the glass. He goes, this was barreled yesterday, and it was already drinking just beautifully.
Yeah,
that's the 12.
The 2012 vintage is a rockin' vintage. I mean, it's just beautiful out of the bottle. I think 11. People had to be a little bit more patient with the 11.
You have to, like the 7s, you know, and there's nothing wrong with the 11 vintage. And even though people they're still bashing it, It's a high acidic vintage, good for long-term aging.
Yeah, certainly. And I think that they're coming around beautifully right now. I mean, I think that people, if anything, should learn the lesson of 2007 in that those wines are beautiful, and now people are seeking them out, whereas, when they first came out, I think that they got a little bit of bad press. But 11 is no different in that regard. I think
absolutely.
They're gorgeous wines.
All right, so your property, now you're right off of Calkins Lane in... what is that? The Yamhill? What AV are you in?
Chehalem Mountain.
You're like on the skirts of the Chehalem Mountains, aren't you?
Yeah,
the backside.
We're on the backside.
Yeah, backside sliding in outside.
We're on the other side of the tracks of the Chehalem Mountain.
On the dark side of the moon. How many acres comprise your estate? Your family estate?
Bergström estate?
Yeah.
When we first planted, the first parcel of Bergström, which is the first vineyard we planted, was 8 acres. And then there's an adjacent 4 acres, and then we have some meter-by-meter spacing in front of the house and directly behind it. So I think that altogether we're talking about 13 odd acres.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you have some other pieces of property as well.
We have 5 estate vineyards. And we do a single vineyard bottling for those estate vineyards, as well as a Shea, which is obviously not estate. But
I think Dick Shea's got an amazing piece of property up there. You know what?
Oh, yeah.
If you're going to kind of dissect the Willamette Valley, I think he's pretty much a Grand Cru vineyard.
Yeah,
and
certainly.
He's pedigreed. He sells his fruit off to certain winemakers, and he's very picky who he sells his fruit to.
Sure.
If you're not a good winemaker, he's not. It's his name on the bottle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He wants that proudness of that. So, all right. So these 2 wines we're going to talk about. We got the Shea, and then we have the. Which one's this? The Gregory Ranch.
Sure.
So let's talk about the Shea vineyard to start with. So,
okay.
How many tons of fruit does Dick sell the Bergström family?
In terms of tons of fruit, we always farm in and around 2 tons per acre, and right now we're farming about 17 acres, all on the east. So if you're familiar with Shea, it breaks down into a west-facing hill and an east-facing hill. We farm all on about 5 blocks on the eastern-facing hill. So at this point, we're doing about 17 odd acres. So out of the 22 wineries from California, Oregon that purchase Shea fruit and make a Shea, we're the largest outside of Dick Shea, who takes about 25% of the fruit from his vineyard for his winery. So so 17 acres times 2.
Now, with all these vineyards, both estate and purchased fruit, does your brother? Josh pretty much has reins and controls over everything that goes on. What he wants done and all that. Is that correct?
Well, obviously, quite a bit of our fruit is coming from estate vineyards. So we have, Josh manages the vineyards and has full control over that regimen. When we work with other vineyards that we're purchasing fruit from, we work directly with them. We farm biodynamically. All the purchased fruit we bring in obviously can't be farmed biodynamically. Dick Shea doesn't farm biodynamically, but he certainly is environmentally conscious, and his vineyard has been LEED certified in the past. So it's quality fruit, and it's environmentally conscious as well.
So your vineyards, your estate stuff, is that all biodynamic? Every one of them?
Every one of them.
But Dick Shea's not. But he, right? Correct?
He's not. He doesn't farm biodynamic.
Okay. And can you really tell the difference between them?
I think so. I mean, it's certainly with our releases from the Chehalem Mountains AVA and our Ribbon Ridge AVA. Le Pré de Col is our Ribbon Ridge, and De Lancelotti vineyard is right next to the winery, including our winery block. You certainly can, and specifically with the soil types. Those thin sedimentary soils and biodynamic farming together you can really, I think, taste the difference. Absolutely.
Okay, great. All right, let's talk about this first wine, the 2012. Now, guys, having a little wine bar, wine shop, and a little restaurant here in Portland, as well as a pretty cool wine tour business, the 12s are just simply delicious. And I have all these reps now bringing in the 12s and tasting through them. I haven't had a bad 12 yet. It's a vintage that kind of made itself.
Yeah.
You could probably put a blindfold on and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And the wine was good. Whereas 11, you had to really sort. You had to really be right on top of your vineyard management skills. Because I think at the end of the day, and I learned this in Mondavi, wines are pretty much made in the vineyard.
Yeah.
Without really good fruit starting off, or as good fruit as you have before it comes in, then you sort through it, then you make the wine.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly, and I think that Pinot Noir is that varietal that really expresses that sense of place. It expresses the vineyard, and you have to be. I think you have to be vigilant. Josh always farms each vineyard to at the beginning of the year. He plans for it to be a difficult vintage. Just
I think that's good going in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then if you get lucky. Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
perfect.
Certainly.
And I thought in 2012, with all the interns coming in here from Australia and from New Zealand, I saw nothing but people standing around a conveyor belt just looking at the fruit, going, "Well, there's not really much to sort out this vintage."
It's a nice it's a nice trouble to have, and that was the case for 2012. It was a nice, long, warm vintage.
Yep.
And the fruit was beautiful. So we were really blessed, and we're really proud of the wines. They came out fantastic.
All right, so I love the earthiness, the bright, dark cherry fruits on this, and the really long finish. It's got great tannins, good acid, good structure. What's the case production on this wine? Roughly.
Roughly, I'm not sure compared to 11 and 12 what the case production is. I know what my allotment is for the state of Oregon.
Sure, and that must be interesting though, because you have such a pedigreed name, and then there's 50 states, and then if you're distributed nationally, which I'm sure you are, not a lot of wine is allocated to certain states. They may be lucky to get 10 cases or 5 cases.
Yeah.
On some of these wines, obviously your Cumberland, now your Old Stones is going away, and then your Cumberland's going to be just like your intro level.
Well,
if you want to call it that.
The way that we look at it is that we, what we have now as far as our portfolio of wines is we have 5 estate single vineyards that we release, and then our Cumberland, which is our blend of fruit from those 5 estate vineyards. At least the 2012, that's the case. In years past, it's been from numerous different sources. But we look at the Cumberland Reserve as our more rustic, old world style Pinot Noir. And so it's not necessarily an intro level wine at all. It's our flagship. It's not our flagship wine, but it's what Josh calls our business card wine.
There we go. Better well said than entry level. You're right. The Shea Vineyard's around $52 a bottle.
Correct.
On the shelf. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. Some people go, $50. Well, it's not Burgundian prices. They can get hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But I tell you, when it gets as good as this, it's a nice special treat. And it's a nice wine to lay down in your cellar for 5 or 10 years. Some vintages I think will do better. Some vintages you drink up quicker, like the 9s. It's a much warmer vintage. But this has got a lot of guts, and it's got a lot of glory. It's going to be interesting when the press come out with the scores on these wines to see what they start giving them, because I think they're going to go quick because they're going to get really good scores.
Yeah, no, there's it's no secret. There's definitely been a buzz behind the 2012 vintage, and I think that when people start really getting an idea for what's out there when they're fully released, I think what's kind of characteristic of the vintage is that when you mentioned 9, 3, 6, and 9 were all ripe vintages. 12 was no different, but what does set it apart is it has this freshness. It has this harmony and this balance to them that 9 might have been a little bit fruit heavy, maybe a little bit clunky in that regard. It didn't have the structure. It was just ripe and delicious, but potentially not quite as age-worthy as I think the 12s will be. I mean, the 12s taste delicious directly out of the bottle, no doubt. But at the same point, they do for people who like to set wine down and see where it goes. I think that the 12s will do fantastic.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the Gregory Ranch. So you purchased some fruit from Dick Shea. Mm-hmm. Gregory Ranch, tell us about that.
Gregory Ranch is, we produce 2 Carlton Yamhill AVAs, 2 wines from the Carlton Yamhill AVA. Gregory Ranch is an estate vineyard. It's owned by Dr. Kenton Gregory. It was planted in 2007, so our first vintage was 2010, 2011. So it doesn't have a long track record, but the wines have always been fantastic. We're really excited about this vineyard.
This is delicious. This has a little bit more sweetness. Now, I'm not talking about residual sugar sweetness. I'm talking about caramely almost sweetness to it, which just on the palate, it's making me salivate. On the palate, which is always a good thing.
Good. That's always a good thing. There.
It is. But it's just got a lengthier finish than the Shea, and I'm not going to kick the Shea out of the car at all. At all. But this is just the structure.
Are you kicking the Shea out of the car?
I am not kicking Dick, I am not kicking your vineyard out of the car at all.
That would just be cruel.
Just the nose on this. And what I think is really cool about what Josh does is he embraces every vineyard and he lets the fruit from that vineyard show itself. It's not like, oh, I'm getting fruit from here, I want to make it taste like fruit from here.
Right.
It's like, okay, you know what? This is separate. It's all separately fermented. Depends on what the oak program is or not is on these wines. It's different from this wine, and I think that's brilliant. And I think it gives him something to really be proud of at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think what's really, what's been nice about tasting these two wines, having been released at the same, in around the same time, is that they're both in the same AVA, and I think for people who don't have a lot of time to research or head out and see all the vineyards and taste all the vineyards in the Carleton Yamhill AVA, which produces some amazing wines. They're fairly close vineyard-wise, but they're so drastically different. And I think that's a real testament to terroir and just how different wines can be while maintaining kind of that similarity of place. Carleton Yamhill AVA wines tend to be gorgeous, silky, dark fruit. Wonderful aromatics. You certainly get that in the Gregory Ranch. Last 2 years, and including the 2012, have just this wonderful nose. And like you said, just a really opulent, delicious wine. And
it is.
It's drinkable right now. It's ready to go. Yeah.
And you know what? I'm going to give this a 92. I'm going to see if the Wine Spectator comes out with these things. I'm going to give this a 92. I'm going to give this 95. I am. I drink a lot of wines, and I've never really kind of put myself out there before. But given these two wines side by side, I'm curious what the Spectator is going to do. And if you like my reviews, they can hire me. I will drink all these wines and review them. Anyway, so next time you come back, we can even do your Chardonnay. You have your Sigrid and your Old Stones. Right. We can sit down and do a show on those, and we'll do a couple more of the Bergström wines. I think it'd be a really cool thing to sit down and kind of get them all on. You live close. You live like maybe 2-3 miles from here.
There's a back alley only a couple blocks away, right. And it's been a nice place to be.
It's nice when these guys live in town this close. That way I don't have to schlep all the way out to wine country, which I don't mind doing, but it's nice just filming the show down here. Anyway, Anders, thank you very much, man, and good luck with all your stuff at Bergström. And Josh, Eric, Kendall, all you guys. It was Paul. I call him Lance.
It's certainly Paul.
Sorry, Paul. Anyway, when we come back, we're going to sit down with somebody else. But you guys all have a great week and a great Valentine's Day. See you later.
Thank you.